All right, guys. Welcome to Stony Progressive. Let's start our day out, right? Start our day out. It is a holiday. I am a bartender. I've already had my day. I've already had quite my day. So, yeah, let's move on, right? Let's get past it. So, I have a lot of stuff on the books. I wanted to start out, of course, with a little blaze in and a little checking out this video. I've saved for a while, and it sounds like a good day today to get this started. I got David Packman coming up. I've got a clip from Russell Brand. I'm going to take down two CIA Democrats, one incumbent, one looking at their future. And let's play with the volume here. Looking good. All right. And then we are going to go over, of course, a Tom Hartman video. He's got something about Trump. And I got some CIA information, of course. If we're going to talk about CIA Dems, we got to talk about CIA other things. But let's get the show started and go with David Packman to get us going, right? As you all know, this is Stony Progressive. Today I'll be giving some ACDC CBD flower a try. Since I am out of real flour, stop by the local store to get that. And then we're going to throw on some shatter on top of that. So it's a great way of doing some wax, some shatter on top of CBD nugs to kind of level out your buzz. So let's do that for our show tonight. And I'm still too big. There we go. All right. Let's check out some David Packman. This one is called You Bunch of Socialist Communist Idiots. Whenever he lays something with that many tags, it's going to be interesting.
And that number is 219-2-DAVID-P. Here is a voicemail from someone who caught the show on our broadcast affiliate, Free Speech TV. Now, some of you may know, some of you may not. Our show is on nightly on satellite television. That's DirecTV and Dish Network. The channel is called Free Speech TV. On DirecTV, I believe it's channel 348. I hope they haven't changed the channel lineup. I think it's 348. On Dish Network, it's channel, again, I hope it hasn't changed, 9415. Here is a viewer who caught us on Free Speech TV, and he doesn't believe the name Free Speech TV for the channel is appropriate. Take a listen to this. Buckle in.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I got the right line. I've got a message for you that I'm still working on. I'm writing off
This is a draft message. Bear that in mind.
a lot of information down about your network and why you call yourself Free Speech TV. I don't understand that. You people sound like a bunch of...
So first of all, Free Speech TV is a platform more than a network. And so calling a individual, calling a person to tell them that their network, this guy's an idiot. But okay, that makes sense.
socialist communist idiots.
Is that it? Still on the phone. Background noise. Sir, please hang up. Okay. This continues to be a funny thing. I am criticized daily, both because, one, we have sponsors, and this is how, I fund my life and how my employees are paid, the fact that the show makes money. So I'm told the show is too capitalist. It's too capitalist to show because it makes it financially sustainable. And this is a socialist or communist show. Now, of course, anyone who watches would know really the perspective of this program is social democracy, which is...
I mean, he's a straight Democrat. Like he is not some crazy progressive. He is not no fringe leftist or far left or anything like of the sort. So if you if you want to call this guy a fringe left or crazy left, you're the asshole in the conversation.
is a regulated form of capitalism. We allow markets to direct resources within many areas, but we say in certain areas we should be out of the market. Healthcare, education. Okay, you guys get it. You guys get it. But it really is fascinating to daily be criticized for being too capitalist of a show and too communistic of a show. I don't expect that to change anytime soon. We have such a great bonus show for you today. Nancy Pelosi is running for re-election. And there are people.
This was from a little while ago. Like I said, I saved the clip and have been gritting my teeth about it for a while, guys. But oh, I love it when people call him a communist. That shows you how, like, I don't know. I I have somebody who always wants me to talk about Trump, and it's like I don't give a shit about Trump. I didn't care about him when he was president. I don't care about him now. Um, it's really, we need to get rid of a lot of things, and the president is not that important or that powerful of a person. And Nancy Pelosi is just as powerful, and she's just as corrupt and evil. We need to get rid of her. And you can look at my old video stating that. That'd be great.
In saying, David, she's in her 80s. That's it. It's time to go. We need a younger Speaker of the House or whatever the case may be. I have some people emailing me saying, David, Nancy Pelosi has an opponent, but her opponent has been accused of sexual harassment. So I'm mixed. Like, should I support her? I'm not really sure. A lot of questions when it comes to the Nancy Pelosi reelection, which we will be talking about on the bonus show. Secondly, the FDA has stopped the use of a particular monoclonal antibody treatment for COVID because it doesn't seem effective against Omicron. And Florida is pushing back, saying, now we want to use it anyway. And Ron DeSantis sort of doesn't seem to understand how simple math works in his defense of that type of monoclonal antibody. We will talk about that. And we do have Olympics coming to China. And ahead of the Olympics, there are some abrupt and very harsh lockdowns looming in Beijing, which we will discuss on today's bonus show. Should there even be Olympics going on? We will talk about all of it on today's bonus show. Get instant access by becoming a member at joinpackman.com.
Yeah, that's enough of that. Just wanted to give him a look-see, see what that was all about. I actually did have, if we're going to take him down, watch him for a minute, that was funny, I think. I did have two saved from him, and let's just go ahead and get rid of them, because I don't want to do this again, right? Yeah. What was the other one? This one. I think I tried to play it before, and it they cut my stream.
There's a protein.
So we'll see if they cut my stream today.
South Carolina. Ben, you're on the air.
Hey, David. How's it going?
It's going well, thanks. What's on your mind today?
Yeah, long time listener, first time catching the stream. So
thank you.
Yeah, so I have two things. So one, you might even call it a critique of the David Packman show.
Please.
And then the second would be a short question afterwards.
Okay.
So I noticed, it might have been yesterday or a couple days ago, the topic was the March for Life rally.
Okay.
And so I noticed that in your speaking about the March for Life rally, so
yeah, getting slowed down a bit. Looks like I said, it won't play this one. It does not want to play this video. My both of my streams just fucking took a shit on me. So let's not play that one, I guess. Let's see if they'll let me play Russell Brand today. This is from a couple days ago. I think we should always give him a peek in. He's freaking great right now.
Leave their platform and billions drops off their share price. Is this the end for Facebook? Welcome to the channel, you 4.9 shimmering seraphins, singing on high with glorious new truths, awakening moment to new possibilities. Let's stay connected, let's stay free, here in reality, not in some...
This one's simply called They're Scared, but they are scared right now. They are cracking down and deleting, censoring. They are scared at the moment, guys.
What's going on over there at Facebook? They're in decline, as we always knew that they one day would be. Up until recently, Facebook has been continually increasing in value and worth. Here's some stories about what's going on there. In this video, we're going to ask you, and we're going to want you to respond because I read them comments, you know I do. Why do you think Facebook's in decline? Is it because of the censorship? Is it because Zuckerberg wrote personally to Fauci? Do we distrust the metaverse? Let's get into it. Facebook's owner, Meta Platforms, which we've all just got to accept now, even though they just made it up about a week ago, saw its stock market value...
They've already changed all of their, when they donate to candidates, it's all all says Meta now instead of Facebook.
Slump by more than $230 billion on Thursday in a record daily loss for a US firm. Wow, it's a new record. Do you want the good news or the bad news? Good news? We're record breakers. Bad news? We're fucked. Meta also said that Facebook's daily active users had dropped for the first time in its 18-year history. The company's share price slide saw chief exec Mark Zuckerberg's net worth fall by 31 billion, according to Bloomberg's billionaire index. The drop in Zuckerberg's personal fortune.
I mean, again, it's all just based on their wealth and shit. Like, it doesn't matter. It's just numbers on paper. It doesn't actually connect to anything. Just like freaking Elon Musk's net worth is all based on Tesla, which owning Tesla doesn't mean that it could drop to zero tomorrow.
Equivalent to the annual gross domestic product of Estonia.
It's not gonna. I mean, just things could happen.
Yeah. In one day, he lost what Estonia earns in a year. I mean, I suppose in a way what that shows you is the power dynamics of global capitalism. Estonia, a country with traditions and songs and a flag and a people and an history and everything, in its whole year, everyone trying their hardest makes as much money as Mark Zuckerberg can lose by writing an ill-timed letter to Anthony Fauci. Meta's stock market slump came on the eve of the 18th anniversary of the founding of Facebook. You're 18 years old. Good news. You can finally get fucked. Last year, Apple brought in its app tracking transparency policy. It lets people choose whether or not they want to be tracked around the internet by companies like Meta, who can then sell that information to advertisers. This is a major problem for Facebook because finding information about you and selling it to advertisers is exactly how it makes money. Its quarterly results show advertising income falling, partly for this reason. If a company makes its money by bundling data on you and selling that data to advertisers, and you value your privacy and don't want them doing that, obviously their business model is in trouble, as you know because you watch my channel.
Right? Their business model is failing. It was dominant. They took over as much as they could of every aspect of everything they could, but it's a crumbling structure, and he's trying to buy up every app and every social thing he can while he still has the falsehood of wealth.
All the time, and you educate yourself. I know that from reading your comments below. The whole of the big tech billions, other than companies that make ingenious devices or whatever, is founded upon compiling your data and selling that data to advertisers. So if that ever becomes a problem for you, if you don't want that anymore, if regulation or legislation were ever passed that prevented that, these companies would be in trouble, because of course that's become a conflicted and complicated thing, bringing about political ends that are not favourable to some of the dominant power players. They're starting to impede that process now, and that is, of course, impacting Facebook's business model. In the end, there is a tension between ordinary people, the population, most of us, and the interests of big business, because ultimately they need to harvest our resources in order to grow themselves. As you know, because we use that Assange quote all the time, the function of government is to take public money and hand it to business, to look for opportunities, to give taxpayers money to, like, say, the Gates Foundation, to prevent legislation ever getting in place that stops big business from making serious money. And that tension can only really ever be mitigated if you have a popular political movement that stands up for ordinary people in the face of these giants. The beginning of Facebook's financial erosion, I suppose, is a good thing in some ways, because it shows that if we don't participate in these products begin to fail. The company's name has been changed to mark a concept, the metaverse, and Zuckerberg is committed to spending tens of billions of dollars on the project. Presumably the metaverse was created or
He's going to be spending so much money right now to try and keep dominance of the freaking market, and that is the only thing he cares about, and he is going to be pushing it for the next he's going to be pushing it actually working pretty well for a while, so don't expect him not to be on the metaverse constantly. Sounds good. All right. Let's keep going.
in anticipation of these problems because they seriously understand data, obviously, over Facebook. So it's not coincidence that Meta is established, regulation around data capture comes about, and suddenly there are these losses and new projects on the horizon. What preceded that, is Facebook trying to get into what we call developing nations, being the only app on phones and all that stuff that we've reported on before. But this is, I suppose, a kind of pivot, or at least an evolution, that suggests that if we don't participate in these systems fail. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? They require us. The area of censorship is something that I know you lot have told us about in the comments below.
They do require us. We have to use their free apps, and we have to give them information so they can sell the information to keep making money. So they need you to keep feeding them information so they have something to sell.
Were ahead of us when that whistleblower thing happened. Loads of you saying, hold on a minute, this whistleblower thing seems like it's actually going to be beneficial to certain interests. You was well smart there. Let's touch on the topic of censorship. Facebook has booted the rapidly growing Convoy to DC 2022 group from its platform after it gained 137,000 members. And of course what they'll say is, oh, they was right-wing and all that kind of thing. As soon as you disagree with someone, misinformation, right-wing. I'm not saying that misinformation ain't a problem. Misinformation is a serious problem.
Yeah, it is. And mainstream media does a lot of it. And they call him right-wing, so it's ridiculous. Some people. Ridiculous.
I'm not saying that prejudice and bigotry isn't a problem. It is a serious problem. But it seems to me that problem is taken a lot more seriously if it's at odds with the interests of the powerful. The group had been gaining tens of thousands of members per day and was calling on all truckers in the US to form a convoy to protest COVID-19 mandates. Organisers were planning to begin the convoy in California and end it in Washington, D.C. Now, what this shows you is that when people do not have access to power through democratic means because the political parties have relationships with lobbyists, big business, etc., that mean that the democratic process is meaningless, people start to think of new ways. Well, can we protest? Can we come together? And what do big tech do? The allies of the government in communication, they shut that shit right down. No, you don't.
They also throttle people's phones in those situations. They slow up their internet, slow up their phone, cut their internet. They do all sorts of things during protests to help the government.
Don't. Another avenue closes down. Now, obviously, I've not had time to research the group Convoy to DC 2022, but I'll tell you this. The idea that a group can come together on Facebook to organise a protest and be shut down shows how far we've come from the days of the Arab Spring, where people were able to use social media to communicate, to protest, to come together against oppressive powers. Nowadays, that's not a possibility. If you're thinking about protesting on Facebook, you better know in advance that your protest is in alignment with the outcomes Facebook desire. Otherwise, they'll probably shut you down and find a legitimate reason for having done so.
They don't even need a legitimate reason. They just tell you you're bullying. They tell you that you're, they hit you with vague shit. Like there's no reason or rhyme to what they do. They just hit you with vague shit, and it doesn't have to matter if they stick. There's nobody to take their appeal. There's nobody to appeal to. You appeal to them, and they shut you down. So even if you do appeal, it goes to them. it's their appeal court. Like there's no accountability.
The QAnon policies that Facebook cited when banning Convoy to DC 2022 were blasted when they were first introduced, with lawyers, journalists and authors warning that they were arbitrary and gave Facebook an unchecked license to censor. Remember how many times we have said to you, even if you disagree with a particular thing, watch out the regulation that's brought about around it, because down the road they might use it in a way that you don't like. That's why being pro-censorship or anti-free speech is not a good idea, even if you disagree with particular types of rhetoric. If you think, I don't like that, I don't think people should have the right to say that. Like, if you yield to that impulse to control, that lends great power to authoritarianists who will use that power how they want, and now you've got no recourse. Facebook just shut down our page, Brian Braze, one of the organisers of Convoy to DC 2022, tweeted. Apparently we don't fit their agenda. People united is scary, I guess. One thing that terrifies them more than anything else is people from left-wing categories, right-wing categories, a variety of categories coming together to unify, respecting our differences, losing any prejudice and bigotry, focusing instead on how we can form communities differently. It terrifies them. It terrifies them because it
should terrify them, because we're going to disrupt at some point. At some point, the system's going to break, and we're going to disrupt their cush lives. We're going to disrupt their sitting on mountain high, thinking that they're better than us, even though intellectually and spiritually they're worse than us. And that's just how the way it goes. It's the way that's the way the system's been set up.
It will work. That's why we have to stay transparent and connected. This isn't the first time that Facebook has banned a rapidly growing grassroots protest movement that's being shunned or disparaged by the mainstream media. Anti-lockdown groups, groups supporting exceptions to COVID vaccine mandates, and more have also been booted from the platform as they gain traction and attract lots of new members. I feel strongly that with regard to most contemporary issues, discourse is a positive thing and disagreement is a positive thing. When I was labelled right wing the other day, I mean, because that personally don't chime with who I am and who I feel myself to be, felt a little like rattled. But in fact, right wing and left wing, it's all just people. In addition to banning specific groups, Facebook has introduced new censorship rules that make it harder for group members to see each other's content. So that's just manipulative and unfair. In a way, social media has superseded and replaced communication devices like telephones and letters and talking. And the idea that that is mobilised in order to capture data is troubling, and the idea that it is censored is troubling. There is a requirement for regulation, but that regulation should be in favour of ordinary people and our ability to communicate freely. A recognition that these platforms have grown beyond all recognition and occupy a place that we don't have the administrative power to recognise. New rules, new regulations, always in the favour of individuals, not in the favour of the interests of certain political or corporate entities. So there has to be some basic values, and the problem is with the cultures and societies we're living in now is they don't have any values. The only thing they value is the pursuit of profit. So in that abyss, in this nihilistic hellscape, always the corporate interest will
win. Always, always, always. Corporations win, we lose. Name of the game. And I thought that was good enough. I was going to go to try to get a second commercial break. So let's do a Stony Progressive Takedown, guys. Got a few ladies on the agenda. A couple CIA Dems. Let's start out with Sarah Jacobs today. Eh? So Sarah Jacobs, Democratic Party. She was on the Wall Street Journal article that I found that was CIA Dems. Just elected in 2021. This is her first re-election. She is representing California's 53rd congressional district. And she was also a candidate for the 49th before the redrawing of districts in 2020. You'll see that a lot. People had different districts that they ran for before the redrawings, and a lot of times they'll move a little bit even to make sure. She was born in San Diego, so she is a Californian. Political science degree and an international affairs degree from Columbia. And she worked in 2016 for Hillary's campaign. And she's had policy. She's been in the U.S. State Department, UNICEF, United Nations, and Foreign Affairs Committee. That's all the CIA Dems seem to have, the Foreign Affairs Committee. She's actually on the Armed Service Committee as well. So that's again always the same thing. Always the CIA Dems have that. That's straight up standard. And then the general direction in California here, they have a Democrat versus a Democrat. So that's fun. So they just have straight up district votes. They don't have primaries, and they have runoffs. So all these people ran, and then you have the runoff vote for who actually can hit 50%. So her biography is founded. Okay, so yeah, she just stands. She said she supported Medicare for all. Her campaign website stated, healthcare is a fundamental right, and we need to do everything we can to get universal coverage. According to her campaign website, Jacob supported repealing the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, strengthening labor unions, expanding Social Security, and incentivizing big investments in small business. Jacob's campaign website stated, we finally have a chance to pass common sense gun violence prevention legislation. So, Democratic talking points, that's kind of always that right there, the gun control thing is always just a talking point to me, personally. That's how I see it. All right. Open secrets. Let's see where her money came from. Qualcomm Inc. That is her number one contributor, and they are a tech company. They do insurance and 5G, and they have stuff to do with that. So that's where they're at. University of California, Emily's List. Like I said, they're a big Democratic super PAC kind of thing. Disney, being down there by LA, and a few PACs. So there's a few PACs, a few local things, but it doesn't really say a lot, right? I mean, that's not a lot of money that shows there. Oh, summary I wanted. Doesn't show a lot of money there, but somehow, even though she has, 20,000 here, 20,000 there, 20,000 here, she somehow has $11 million. So again, this is one of those people that got a lot of money from progressives, even though she's in intelligence, and that's why the journal had the article on them. She was one in there. Her money comes from the Democratic liberal PACs, lawyers, and real estate, securities and investments, and she got a lot of money in 2020 when she won that election. And as I've said before, and I'll say it again, supposedly that money all got funneled to her from the Democratic Party taking money from progressives, giving it to CIA Dems, intelligence, military, people that have connections in those fields. And as always, I've never seen this person, talked to this person, heard anything from them. So here is their most recent clip from the floor.
Is here to deliver for them, and the bipartisan infrastructure law is delivering for San Diego. Recently, the Department of Transportation announced that $24 million has been allocated to the San Diego International Airport, supporting tourism for our international city and helping our economy recover. But it's not just the airport. $4.8 billion in highway funding has been allocated to California already, the first of more than $29 billion in road and bridge funding coming to our state. Last week, I visited sites in my district in El Cerrito, Kensington, and Talmadge, where neighborhood roads were cracked, crumbling, and in need of repair. I've spoken with constituents, local officials, and small business owners in the...
She had to read all this? She doesn't just know it because she was there and did it? That's weird. Is she one of those people who are out drinking and partying all day, and then they say that they were at places and they show up for like 30... Congressional people constantly show up for somewhere for like 10 seconds. Like, yep, I was here. Yep, I was here. Yep, I was here. They literally stop in for 20, 30 seconds, a minute or so, get a picture, say hi to one person, so their presence was known, and then they leave.
About the importance of transit, walkability, and broadband. Because this may be the largest infrastructure bill since Eisenhower, but it's also one that's focused on the needs of the 21st century. Connecting people by roads, transit, and high-speed internet can help us cross divides and expand opportunity, and it makes our society fairer, more sustainable, and more equitable. I yield back. Madam Speaker.
All right, that was her. I guess that wasn't a whole lot to go on, huh?
Lauro. And next, I recognize my friend Sarah Jacobs from California.
Oh, she's friends with him? That's fantastic. Because that guy is a stooge CIA Dem I just did. Just did you, man. Gosh, that's great.
Well, thank you, Jason, for putting this on and for the glass of whiskey you poured me after we finally got back to our offices on January 6th. And Madam Speaker, thank you for your leadership during this time. January 6th was my 4th day in office. January 6th was my first time ever to the House Gallery. My team had to walk me there because I didn't know how to get through the Capitol yet. I'll never forget the buzzing of the escape hoods, the fear when I couldn't open the packaging, the sound of the doors closing.
She'll never forget it, but she has to read it. Seriously? Come on, guys. Just know your fucking story. Put headphones on and hear it like 20 times if you want to. Don't read it if you know it. My dog just hussed. Like, seriously, guy, come on.
And being locked. Introducing myself to my colleagues as we were hiding under the chairs. Any customer grabbing my hand. Fashioning weapons out of stanchions and pens and my high heels. Ready to take on the rioters who were banging on the doors behind us. Climbing over chairs and under rails, not sure where the rioters were and if we were going fast enough to escape them. Wondering if the bruises.
I'm sure she was scared that day. I guarantee she was scared that day, but this. Why you have to read it? Why don't you just know? This is a 2-minute speech. Like,
I found later that night were from dropping to the floor so many times or from our rushed escape. Waiting for the elevator door to open. Sure we were going to see a machine gun and for it all to be over. The Capitol police officer who put his body in the way in case that happened. Looking to my right and seeing the mob as we rushed to get out, seconds away from getting us. I'll never forget just how close we came to losing our democracy that day. But I'll also never forget the feeling as I was sitting there under my chair.
first of all, we're a republic. We're not a democracy. That's a farce. Second of all, we wouldn't have lost it on that day. That's not what would have happened. Some people might have got hurt or something, but you weren't going to lose your democracy, so that's not what it is. I think I'm over this. All right, we're good with that today, right? If you know more about her, we can, look her up, but CIA dem list, her money came from small donors, and just magically she got a lot of money. And so again, I didn't see the numbers, but according to the couple people that I read, this is one of these people that got progressive money from when they, took it from the Democrats. So we don't need to talk about her anymore. I'll clip that. You can send it out. Let's check out Tom today. America doesn't need Trump's Civil War. I always have somebody that wants to hear more about Trump. Here you go.
The chaos, the bloodshed and chaos of civil war. Adam Kinzinger, the Republican who's on the January 6th committee along with Liz Cheney, it came out last week and said that he was openly worried about a second American Civil War. He said, I don't think that's too far a bridge to recognize it's going to be armed groups against armed groups, targeted assassination and violence. And I'm not certain that he's right that we're going to have a civil war. In fact, I'm pretty skeptical about it. But there is an active movement within the United States trying to start a civil war. And over the weekend, I read Barbara Walters' book.
Oh. Doesn't seem like they like this one. I am getting slowed down on all the platforms, so...
Walter, not the TV person. It's just an absolutely brilliant book. It's titled How Civil Wars Start. And she goes in, she digs into, the Bosnian conflict.
Right. They don't like me talking about certain things. It slows way down out of nowhere. I guess let's move on. Sorry, guys. He is independent. This shouldn't have a problem. And I talk about these people all the time. So CIA admits still bulk surveying U.S. citizens. From Lee Camp. Moment of clarity.
Which I said before, the New York Times, when they're not printing straight up propaganda, which is a lot of the time, they're printing what I think the name of the New York Times should be. I think it should be called Just Noticed. Because whenever they actually get something right, it usually is something that we fucking should have known for years, or most people did know for years, and then New York Times is like, just noticed. So this one, such as climate change, 2 years ago when New York Times discovered climate change, this one is goes under the just noticed category. So this is the CIA is collecting bulk data of Americans. Oh my God. This is a new article. I know right now you're thinking, oh, Lee found an article from 2005. This is a new article. CIA is collecting bulk data of Americans shocker, stunning. And literally, there's two reasons that they're covering this now. One is because there's new information, but the other is because supposedly there was a time under Obama where they kind of ended the bulk data gathering. But anybody who knows anything knew that was bullshit. When Obama and some of the others were running around and being like, "Oh, we stopped it. There's no more bulk data collection." We were like, fucking yeah, there is. Yeah, they're not giving up their power. Are you fucking kidding me? That's not how the CIA works. So, a partly declassified letter from two senators, Ron Wyden and Martin Heinrich, does not say what the data is. I don't know if that's pronounced Heinrich or Heinrich. I don't know if he goes by the full German pronunciation. Martin Heinrich. But the CIA has for years been collecting in bulk without a warrant some kind of data that can affect Americans' privacy. So the reason I thought this story was important for multiple reasons, but one of them is because we should be talking about this every fucking day. This should be a story, ongoing story about Americans' data, our information, our privacy being illegally invaded every fucking day by our government, by the governments under Trump, under Biden, under Obama, under Bush, all right?
The president doesn't fucking matter. Seriously, it doesn't matter who the president is, so.
Bulk surveillance of American citizens, and the only reason Clinton didn't do it is because he couldn't fucking monitor fax machines. The fucking technology wasn't there yet. Was he good? All we had was AOL accounts, and he probably was watching those. So they probably put a tracking device on every one of those AOL hour discs, the CDs. 1,000 AOL hours, and you probably put a tracking device in your computer when you stuff that in your disk drive, your DVD disk drive or whatever the fuck. For anyone out there who's like 25, just ask your grandpa what a disk drive is. But so this should be talked about endlessly, and instead it is fucking never mentioned, never discussed. In the entire presidential election with Biden and Trump, I don't think it was ever mentioned mass surveillance of American citizens. It is not a conversation. Your mainstream media just thinks it's fine. Don't even need to mention it. I mean, the truth is, what's the real reason? Well, the real reason is because they are corporate America's fucking shills. That's why they do it. So why would they want to talk about something corporate America doesn't want to talk about? So, CIA, bulk. Oh, yeah, and I want to mention the warrant. So, without a warrant. Now, that sounds bad, and it is bad that they're collecting data without a warrant. However, with the warrant is barely fucking different. Because if you actually look into it, the FISA court, the court that gives them the warrant to actually surveil Americans, they approved 99.9% of all warrant surveillance.
That's all. Why even bother? It's an automatic. Like, if you can click this button, you get the warrant. Like, oh, I'm gonna click it. Got it. All right, let's do it again.
It's warranted surveillance.
Once in a while, a drunk guy goes, oh fuck it, let's just not arrest him. Like, what the hell?
That the CIA or the FBI, whoever the fuck wants. So the idea that a warrant matters. Yes, I want them to get a warrant, but I also want a fucking court that doesn't just rubber stamp every request for a warrant they ask, that they put forward. Like, a warrant only matters if they ever say no.
Right.
A warrant only matters if you have a court that is legit, but instead...
You actually have some sort of process or some sort of nuance to it, but if you just... Yep, 99% rubber stamp. Once in a while, you miss the mark or something, or somebody, 99%, that's like, like somebody falls asleep at the wheel and doesn't make it or something.
These people are all in one big clusterfuck together. They're all in bed together, all right? They're all sucking and fucking each other endlessly, okay? They've all got various pieces and limbs all stuck in each other's mouths and orifices and ears, and I won't list the others, but it's one big in-bed clusterfuck. Warrant sounds good, and it would be better, but you need to not just have a rubber stamp corp that doesn't the warrant doesn't matter. It doesn't, like, they never say no.
Yeah.
They never say no to the warrant. So then how can a warrant matter? Okay, let's keep going for a second. The CIA kept censored the nature of the data when declassified the letter. At the same time, when it declassified the letter, at the same time, it declared the report about the same topic, which had prompted the letter. By the way, this is terrible writing. Whoever this New York Times writer is should be beaten with a heavy shovel. Which had prompted the letter must remain fully classified, except for some heavily redacted recommendations. That report, called Deep Dive 2, was part of a set of studies by a watchdog board scrutinizing the intelligence community operations. And then in March 2021, the Senate Intelligence Committee received a copy of the report. The next month, 2 Democrats on the panel, Ron Wyden and Martin Heinrich of New Mexico, urged Avril Haines, the Director of National Intelligence, and William Burns, the CIA Director, to declassify the activity and any internal rules about querying the data for information. I mean, do you understand how ridiculous this system is? Our
Ridiculous. It's beyond feasible. It's beyond, like, how do they even explain that? How do you explain, like, must be so many tiny laws to get to that point where you can't even explain the entirety of what they can do now. It's insane.
Congress, which is our so-called elected officials that are supposed to be accountable to the people, and the people are supposed to have some sort of control in a democracy over these systems, has to go to the CIA and go, by the way, the unelected CIA, and go, can you please do us this favor? Could you unredact it, please? Could you declassify it? So who do you think is wearing the fucking pants in that situation? Who do you think's, like, running that thing? If the Congress is going back to the CIA and the CIA goes, we don't feel like it. No, never mind. No, we urge you. Yeah, no, we don't. That's not a thing we enjoy doing, telling you what we're up to. So, don't think so. Complaining that the CIA had not told the Intelligence Committee about the activity before, the senator suggested that its hidden existence cut against Americans' understanding that various pieces of legislation enacted in recent years, quote, limit and in some cases prohibit the warrantless collection of Americans' records. Complaining the CIA had not, I'm telling you, this guy's the worst writer who's ever lived, had not told the intelligence about the activity before, the senator suggested that its hidden existence cut against Americans' understanding. Well, yeah, the whole point of the CIA is that they don't want Americans to understand what the fuck they're up to. That's like that's their bread and butter. They have that sewn into their underwear. Make sure America doesn't understand you. Yeah, I mean, so you have, and I mean, this is so sad on so many levels. You have 2 Congress people that even begin to give a fuck about this, because most Congress people are so thoroughly 100% bought up that they would never even bring up a topic like this.
Right.
But then you have these 2 guys, Ron Wyden, occasionally seems to maybe care about 1 or 2 things that matter, and Heinrich, who I know nothing about, and they say, hey, CIA, this isn't fair. It makes America not understand the legislation and not understand what's going on by not telling us this. And the CIA goes, oh, what? I can't hear. I'm sorry. My phone's breaking up. We're not on a phone. We're talking in person. But I can't hear, though. The phone is bad reception. I gotta go. Sorry. I gotta go. There's a black site in Pakistan where I need to go taser a guy's nuts. So I'm sorry. I gotta run. But there was one particular paragraph that I wanted to read to y'all. In 2015, Congress banned bulk collection of telecommunications metadata under the Patriot Act. So that's what I was saying, that under Obama, they said, oh, it's been banned. But CIA didn't stop. CIA don't care. CIA don't give a fuck. CIA is not accountable to anybody or anything at all. In 2015, Congress banned bulk collection of telecommunications metadata under the Patriot Act and limited other types of bulk collection by the FBI under laws governing domestic activities like the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, or FISA. That's the court that issues the warrants. Yet, the CIA has secretly conducted its own bulk program. Under Executive Order 12333, the senators wrote, it has done so entirely outside of the statutory framework that Congress and the public believe govern this collection, and without any of the judicial, congressional, or even executive branch oversight that comes with the FISA collection, the letter continued. This basic fact has been kept from the public and from Congress. Do you follow that? Do you follow that fucking paragraph?
Nope.
The title of this fucking New York Times article should be CIA out of goddamn control and accountable to no one. And of course my camera cuts off right then. All right, we're back, which means I have to yell that line again. The title of this article should have been CIA out of control. CIA not accountable to anyone. CIA do whatever the fuck it want. That should have been the one of those. I'll let you pick any of those three, New York Times. Any of those three. Make those the title of your goddamn article.
Right? Yeah, we
CIA
can't.
don't care what you think. CIA own you. CIA owns all your bases. Okay? Like, that paragraph alone doesn't even matter what it's talking about. The details of the poorly written details of 1233 exactly that don't even matter. All that matters is this paragraph. The CIA has conducted its own bulk data surveillance despite the so-called Patriot Act bill that ended bulk surveillance. Despite the changes to the Patriot Act that ended the bulk surveillance, it has done so entirely outside the statutory framework that Congress and the public believe, keyword, govern this collection, and without any of the judicial, congressional, or executive branch oversight. That paragraph says the CIA is accountable to no one. They do their bulk surveillance of American citizens. They don't care whether Congress looks into it. They won't find anything because it's all classified. They don't care whether Congress passes something saying it won't go on anymore. They don't care whether the executive, the president, tries to stop it. CIA do what it want. CIA don't give a fuck. That's what that paragraph says. And honestly, not only is it again, this goes back to what I was saying earlier about false realities. We live in a false reality where they told us they were done with bulk surveillance. That was the fake reality they pushed us under Obama after Snowden came out. So basically, Snowden reveals the bulk surveillance, which should have been illegal to begin with. And then Congress and Obama realized they got to do something. So they alter the Patriot Act to decrease or end bulk surveillance. And now we see from the CIA, from the New York Times, reporting what Ron Wyden and Heinrich said, that the CIA's been doing it anyway. Outside of a statutory framework, outside of the purview, the fucking approval of Congress, the executive, or the judicial system. And again, our system is so bought off that I'm sure the CIA can get whatever they want, but they don't even need to ask. They don't even have to answer to the bought off Congress, the bought off president, or the bought off courts. They do whatever the fuck they want. That's what that article says. And the New York Times will write one little article. Hey, one little article. Who knows what section that was in. I don't think it was on the front page. One little article deep in the newspaper will say, hey, CIA, do whatever the fuck it wants. Doesn't listen to Congress, president, anyone. Monitoring American citizens without their approval or warrant. Just letting you know. Hey. And they probably won't report on it again for a year till Ron Wyden says something else and they give a little reminder article. And that'll be it. Mm-hmm. Runaway fucking intelligence agency. All right, guys. That is...
that is Moment of Clarity with Lee Camp. And, the CIA admitted, which we already should know, but the CIA admitted it, so you can be more mad now. They're doing it out and open. They're doing it right in front of us, right to us, and they're okay with it. I'm not. Nobody should be. But that's what's happening. Hey, I started a Twitch stream. I wanted to continue with this, and I am not. As a comedic person, I guess he's funny, and he's done some good things in his past. He has also been accused of sexual harassment and was kicked out of Congress. So I wanted to see what he was up to. And the fact that he's touring and doing a bunch of stuff right now is kind of, I don't know, mildly frustrating. But I wanted to see what he was up to and check him out for a minute. Al Franken.
You know what the number one cause of death in the United States is right now? Tucker Carlson.
Ridiculous. That's an. I don't. Freaking idiot.
He did a story last night about a Kearney, Nebraska man who was vaccinated on Tuesday at 12:49 p.m. and was dead exactly 12 hours later. Now, what he didn't tell you is that the man's car was hit by a train.
Good afternoon. I'm Jonathan Capehart, opinion writer for the Washington Post. Welcome to the Capehart podcast on Washington Post Live. As I said, I am Jonathan Capehart. My guest today was made famous by his role as a writer and performer on Saturday Night Live for 3 decades. But he turned his political activism into a political career, serving as a United States Senator from the great state of Minnesota for 10 years. It is his time in that august chamber that provides the comedic fodder for the only former U.S. Senator currently on tour. He is Al Franken. Senator Franken, welcome to Capehart on Washington Post Live.
Well, thank you, Jonathan, for inviting me.
And a reminder to our audience, we want you to join our conversation, so please tweet your questions and comments to the handle Post Live. So, Senator Franken, as I do with anyone who has had the guts to run for elective office and ask people to vote for them, I always use their titles, whether they're current or former. But would you mind if I call you Al?
Yes. No.
You wouldn't.
Yeah. Your producer asked me before. I said, call me Al.
Well, okay. All right, Al. So what inspired you to
communicate with you very well?
No, they did. I just wanted the audience to know because they know me. They know me well.
You can call me anything like pretty much.
So, Al, what inspired the only former U.S. Senator currently on tour?
What inspires me now?
Well, what inspired you to do it?
Well, what inspired me to do the tour?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I love comedy. That's where I started. I actually never really did a single stand-up tour. I used to do comedy with Tom Davis, who we went to high school together, and we were two of the original SNL writers. We did 15 seasons there, not 3 decades, but we did it over 2 decades. We left for 5 and came back. So Tom and I toured as a team, but I've been a big fan of really great stand-ups all my life, and people. There's a million of them, but people like Carlin and Lenny Bruce and just Richard Pryor, all those people, and I really admire great stand-ups.
I do too.
I started working out at a place called the Comedy Cellar in Greenwich Village about a year ago, and just trying to get my chops going, and then went on tour. In September, I did 15 cities, did DC, did the Warner Theater down there, and about to go on to do 16 more cities starting in a week or so.
Wow. I love the fact that you went back to go, you said the Comedy Cellar? and
Yeah.
to get your chops back. Did it take you longer than you expected to get your chops back?
Oddly, no. But I mean,
I don't know who this person is. On Washington Post Live, Capehart. I don't know who he is.
I don't even know if his chops back, but because I really not done a single. But you know, I've been public speaking for a long time, and I've been fun. I was, you know, so no, it was actually fun right away. And I had actually before the pandemic gone on the road a little bit, and that was more of a little bit of different format, more of a speech answering questions kind of thing. But this was really, I just seriously said, okay, you're doing stand up, Al. Let's see if you can do that.
So then, Al, what material do you cover in this show, and how are you folding the stranger than fiction current events into your comedy?
Well, first of all, it's comedy, and so it's I'm you know people shouldn't come expecting a lot of just commentary. I'm trying to honor stand-up comedy, so it's about laughs. But I did talk a lot about uh, what's going on now in this country in terms of our governance. I think you're going to be asking me about the Senate and stuff like that. I do talk a lot about
Senate.
people I served with and what that was like, and also, of course, about some of the conflicts that we're seeing right now. So it's a mix of stuff.
All right, so let's just talk about it. So who do you talk about in your tour? Like, who really gets broiled?
Hey, Cruz. I have a thing called the Ted Cruz section of the show because there's so much to say. I have always said about Ted is that I probably like Ted Cruz more than most of my colleagues like Ted Cruz, and I hate Ted Cruz. So I just explained why.
That was funny. That was solid.
And I talk about I tell a number of stories, and they're all pretty unbelievable. There's a reason people don't like him. I mean, Lindsey Graham said if someone killed Ted Cruz on the floor, they could never get convicted, and they had a trial in the Senate, no one would convict them. And and he's kind of right. And so I tell some pretty interesting stories about Ted.
And I knew this, that Ted Cruz takes up a lot of time in your set, in your tour. But who do you broil who most folks wouldn't think you would make a joke about them?
Well, I do joke about some of my Democratic colleagues, but it's nothing like.
Well, sure, nothing like Ted Cruz.
It's more affectionate kind of stuff about them. I mean, I talk about Bernie having to, I've known Bernie for a long time. I campaigned for him when he was in the House, and he sort of had the same stump speech for 30 years, which is, this country is run by the millionaires and the billionaires. And then I talk about the time he turned out he's a millionaire because he sold a number of bestsellers, not number one New York Times bestsellers like I have, but he's a millionaire. And then it was just about his time having to adjust from this country is run by the billionaires and multi-billionaires, and it was just having him try not to say millionaires. And that's when I remember he had that heart attack November on the way to that in the beginning of the 2020 cycle. And a lot of people would say to me, well, that's it for Bernie, I guess. Are you kidding? I said, Bernie has more energy than anyone I know. And I said, remember Cheney? He had like 12 heart attacks during the Bush administration. And he had 3 artificial hearts. 2 of which rejected him. So that's there you go. That's
See,
a
Al,
taste. A taste.
you got me to snort there in public.
Okay, well,
So Al,
that kind of snorting is fine in public.
listen, Al, as you well know, the intersection of comedy and politics
Ooh, a drug
can
joke
be
from a politician. That's risque, right? All right. That was enough. Just an interview, I guess, talking about his new comedy tour and all the money you can give him. He's well off. He's a millionaire, and he was handsy with some interns or something like that and got kicked out of the Senate. So that's the kind of people that aren't canceled. They're not canceled, but we cancel all sorts of people for all sorts of little reasons. I wanted to do one more CIA Dem tonight before we get into our last, before our White House press briefing and the last big story of the night. And so today I looked up Jackie Gordon. She was not an incumbent. She lost in 2020, so she is now going again for 2022. She lost to her, but so she lost. She got a lot of 27,000 small donations, so that's good. She got out there and got small donations. Also got a lot of money from the Democracy Engine, End Citizens United, Emily's List, all big democratic small d think tanks. The New Democrat Coalition is a big one. With Honor Pack, Bridge Pack, Equality Pack, Pack. And she is a vet. God, she's got a lot of packs that give money to her. So she is a big on the pack donations. So she is going again, like I said, running in 2022. And the only Democrat in the primary in 2020. But she got taken down by a Republican. Serve America Movement Party? Every state's different, so I don't know what's going on in New Jersey, but she got taken out by a Republican. She's running again, and she said, in response to the coronavirus, Gordon said she would support small business relief funding, expand job creation in American medical supply chain, and making healthcare and prescription drugs more accessible. Not free, not Medicare for all, more accessible. Gordon said her experience serving in the Army Reserve and working as a guidance counselor informed her dedication to service and working across the aisle. Army Reserve, I don't have a problem with. I have a problem with the fact that they think that she is a CIA Dem. That I don't like. This is her own personal website, running for the first. Born in Jamaica, West Indies, and grew up in Queens, New York. 29 years career in armed forces. Okay, so that's why they say, that's why she's not just Army Reserve. She's 29-year career. She definitely had connections. She wasn't just one of the everyday people. And I've never heard anything about her, so I saw in this clip, she's not in. Like I said, she's ran before. So this was from her first election.
As a Long Island congressman, Peter King is retiring.
And now the race to determine who will replace him is neck and neck. CBS 2's Jennifer McLogan reports.
Respected Congressman Peter King is saying goodbye to politics.
Listen, it's been a great run in Congress, a great district to represent, but Andrew Garbarino is going to do a terrific job.
They are very, very big shoes to fill. I hear it every day.
Republican Andrew Garbarino hopes to ride King's coattails from Albany to D.C.
I've been a member of the New York State Assembly for the last 8 years. I work at the local family law firm in Sayville.
Democrat Jackie Gordon of Copiague wants to continue her life of service, a military police officer, Wilson Tech guidance counselor, Babylon town councilwoman.
We need to bring the United back in the United States.
Former Long Island Congressman Steve Israel says Gordon has the smarts and is the real deal.
She's the real deal because she is defiantly independent, just like most Long Islanders.
Gordon's highlighting health care, veterans issues, Pell Grants, climate change. You're going to walk across the aisle.
Yes, not only walk across the aisle, but sit at the table together with Democrats and Republicans alike.
Andrew Garbarino wants to restore the SALT tax and is focusing on policing.
Very pro-law enforcement, very pro-public safety. I am totally against the defund the police movement.
Oh, I'm undecided at this point.
Garbarino is our choice.
Gordon, I like her.
Their campaign ads are running day and night. Some voters sick of the negativity.
Politics today isn't what it used to be. All it is slur campaigns.
Constant bickering. This one's bad. This one's terrible. I mean, I won't know till I get to the polls.
And making sure that the Long Island I grew up in, the Long Island a lot of people grew up in, continues.
I'm standing in front of you as an immigrant. I am the epitome of that American dream.
Many voters tell us Peter King will be missed. They now want to choose a candidate who has the sound reasoning and insight to represent a new generation of Long Islanders. In the 2nd Congressional District, I'm Jennifer McLogan.
Oh, that seems like a super exciting race between a jackass Republican and a CIA Dem. Can't wait for it, guys. I hope somebody comes up. It's not going to happen this year, but every 2 years. So let's take notice of this district. Somebody in the district come up from independent, libertarian, progressive parties. Something. Come on. Let's go to the White House and be more discouraged by more good stuff. All right. It was not Jen Psaki today. The world is not right. But she kind of speaks in the same tones as Jen, so it was a good day. I think I left it off where I want it.
Contact with Russia, Ukraine, and our NATO allies as well.
And then one last one. There's concern in terms of, obviously, in the European economic side of things, if Russia continues to escalate, if there's an invasion. On the domestic side of things, is the White House economic team looking at anything that the president may need to pursue if an invasion comes to pass about what it could do? Obviously, oil markets being one, but I think just general instability in markets.
Yeah, I don't have anything specific to read out to you for you at this moment. As we talk about energy, I'm assuming that's one of the things that you're asking about, Phil, is like we are working with countries and companies around the world to ensure the security of supply and to mitigate against price shocks affecting the American people, Europe, and the global economy. We are continuing our discussions with major producers around the globe to supply, so supply meets demand. All tools are on the table. A disruption in physical energy supplies transiting Ukraine would most accurately affect natural gas markets in Europe. And so we are engaging our European allies to coordinate response planning, including how to deploy their existing energy stockpiles. We have been working to identify additional volumes of non-Russian natural gas from North Africa and the Middle East to Asia and the U.S. We thank REENT comments by Japan about supporting Europe's energy security through LNG shipments to the region. We are in discussion with major natural gas producers around the globe to understand their capacity and willingness to temporarily surge natural gas output and
better.
to allocate these volumes in European buyers. We are also engaging with major buyers and suppliers of LNG to ensure flexibility in existing contracts and storage is managed and enables a diversion to Europe.
Speaker Cohen, thank you for doing this. There's reporting, quoting Ukrainian officials, as saying that President Zelensky's statement today that an invasion is imminent on February 16th was in fact sarcastic or ironic and more of a commentary on this idea that there are countries or entities that know of a date certain. Is that sarcasm or irony, the read of the NSC in the White House?
So I don't have a read on that. Here's what I can tell you about that. I heard the statement, but I haven't actually heard it in its full context. So the irony of all of it, I couldn't speak to. But I'll say this. Well, I'm not going to speak to intelligence matters, as I've said, multiplies already. Our intelligence sharing with the Ukrainians. As we said before, we are in the window when an invasion could begin at any time. It remains unclear which path Russia will choose to take, because we do not know. It is his decision to make. We remain engaged with Russian government in full coordination with our allies and partners. The path for diplomacy remains available if Russia chooses to engage again constructively. But we are clear-eyed about the prospects on the ground and are ready to impose severe costs on Russia in coordination with our allies and partners if they attack Ukraine.
All right, and two other unrelated matters. Supreme Court.
I feel she's trying to read it like Jen reads it. Like it's kind of like she's trying to hit those patterns and those soft to high notes that Jen does.
Is it still the expectation that the president will interview nominees this week? And do those that are under consideration know for certain that they're on the short list of people being considered?
So, I appreciate the interest here. Look, after having a series of conversations and good discussions with lawmakers from both sides of the party, legal experts, scholars last week, the president continued to review materials as he considers deeply.
She say both sides of the party instead of both sides of the aisle. I think her prepared answers for her to read is not coming off as well as Jen just snapping at people.
Qualified candidates, as we have said, with strong experience, character, integrity, dedication to the Constitution and the rule of law. I don't have anything else to share on any interviews or who he's interviewed, but we don't have anything else to share for today or for this week.
And what's that?
Has he interviewed someone then? The way you just
You
said.
said interviewed. Yeah, that's the.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant to be. He has not interviewed potential nominees. To be clear, sorry. But to just answer your last question is that we are on track. He is on track to select a SCOTUS nominee by the end of this month.
Okay. And then just real quick, Robert Califf is still awaiting confirmation in the Senate to be FDA commissioner. It looks like that may happen tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Is the White House confident he's got the votes? Have you lined up all the Democratic votes you might need for this?
Well, I'll say this: we are confident Dr. Califf will be confirmed with bipartisan support. And urge the Senate to confirm him tomorrow, as you just stated, Ed. It is critically important to have.
Man, I know Jen's taking a break or she's in New York with the president or whatever, but this is every single thing she has to read. It's kind of distracting. It's kind of hard to pay attention to her when she's constantly reading. Oh, she's trying to feel she's trying to hit, a natural tone, but it's just
Confirm leadership at the
written
FDA
responses.
in the midst of a pandemic, as we all know. He had a strong bipartisan showing coming out of committee, including from Ranking Member Burr. It's important to remember he was confirmed 89-4 in 2016. Many folks who supported him then are still in the Senate. We are in a daily contact with HHS, who is leading the effort to get him confirmed. HHS and the White House officials are making a lot of calls to the Hill, figuring out which members need what information. Secretary Becerra, our OLA team, and Steve Ricchetti are all making.
When she came out this morning, I thought she was just going to come out for a few minutes and then they're going to move on to somebody. And no, it's her today, and they have written responses for her, and she can't go off. And as soon as she gets done, she goes, I don't have anything else. I don't have anything else. I don't have anything else. There's nothing more on that subject. I've read it. I'm done. I've read it. I'm done.
Calls in support of Califf to a bipartisan group of Senate offices. Dr. Califf himself has met or is scheduled to meet with 47 senators, and that number continues to increase. It's also one of the highest number of meetings of any nominees that have been done thus far.
Okay. In his conversation with President Putin, did President Biden give him any signal for how he could de-escalate? Would it have to be something visible, like moving forces somewhere? Could it be something in the realm of what's verbal, like what we saw from Lavrov today? Is there anything that the president set out as a cue that could try to tamp things down?
So the call between the two presidents.
I feel like she said that in a different way to Jen like 2 days ago. Maybe it was like 4 days ago, 2 streams ago. Who knows? But they're gonna ask her. And, like, does nobody in the room read? Like, she is reading responses. She's not gonna come step off a cue. She's not gonna say anything she's not supposed to. You're not gonna catch her slipping. She is reading the response, looking back up at you.
Was professional and substantive. So it lasted a bit over an hour, as you all know, from the readout this past weekend. The two presidents agreed that our teams would stay engaged in the days ahead, but there was no fundamental change in the dynamic.
And just to close the loop on the Supreme Court, so you're not saying that the president has done any interviews?
No, I'm not. Just to be clear.
Now,
I meant potential interviews.
The president has some travel scheduled this week.
Yeah.
Given the volatility of world events, do you anticipate that if things were, and I know this is hypothetical, but often when there are unpredictable events, there can be changes to the schedule. Are you in a posture where you think that could be a situation where the president would remain at the White House or anything like that if things were to change?
Well, as you said, it is hard to read, Kelly O, a hypothetical or to give an answer to a hypothetical. As you know, the president deals with multiple things at once, and that's what this president is prepared to do.
Thanks, Karine. On the sort of ripple effects of a potential invasion, is the administration prepared to block Russian oil imports to the U.S. if Russia invades, given that the imports have reached their highest prices in 11 years?
So, I mean, I just laid out what we're
11
doing. We're
years.
talking to countries and companies around the world, engaging with them on all of the different potential outcomes if this were to happen. I don't have any more specifics than that I just laid out for you.
Can't you
and
pay
so one
attention?
of the
I'm
things that
only
we have
reading
said
what is
over and
here.
over again, and the
Jesus,
president has made this
woman.
very clear to Vladimir Putin, is if Russia chooses to invade, there will be swift and severe economic consequences.
Wouldn't it be difficult, though, for the U.S. to continue to import Russian oil after all of the rhetoric that we've put forward about Russia not needing to not invade Ukraine and pressuring Germany to, come out strongly on Nord Stream 2 and possible punishments for Russia if they were to take this step? Wouldn't it be tough for the U.S. to continue in that event to import Russian gas?
Well, again, it's a hypothetical. I'm just telling you what we have been very, very clear. The president has been clear. Our national
this
security
gets-
advisor has been clear.
Gets
We all
old.
have-
But I think there's one last good one here.
The president is proud that she's going to
In
be
like 10
representing the
seconds.
United States.
Just a couple of quick ones. Following up on this Zelensky question, can you confirm whether President Zelensky asked President Biden to come to Ukraine this week and whether the administration considered it at all? I know you don't have travel to announce, but
All I can tell you is what I just said. We don't have travel to confirm right now. That is what this president's schedule looks like in the.
Like, none of them get it the whole time. Like, it's over and over. Like, she's gonna read, she's gonna look up with you. She's read the 6 things that you guys asked. You guys just keep trying to nitpick, ask it in a different
Certainly
way.
not confirming to go to visit Ukraine. And that's what now our focus right now is to continue to have the conversations on the staff level, to continue to make sure that we keep the door to diplomacy open. There's too much at stake. There are human lives at stake, which is what the president told President Putin, and that is our focus. How do we stop a war? That's our focus.
And Pfizer withdrew late last week its application for the vaccine for young kids. Is that a disappointment to the White House?
Yeah, I have something on that.
Like I said, there's one more good one. One more good one. Oh, man. She literally has to go, I got something for that.
So FDA is committed to acting urgently to save lives amidst the pandemic, and they continue to work with Pfizer to review additional data on its vaccine for kids under 5. In recent days, new data, as you know, Tam, emerged regarding Pfizer's submission to the FDA for its vaccine for kids under 5 years old. Based on FDA's assessment of that new data, the agency concluded that additional information regarding a third dose should be considered as part of any authorization. The initial data has been helpful to the process, but FDA believes more information, including the impact of a third dose, is important to the evaluation. So that is the process. That is the process right now, currently. That's working, and that should give parents everywhere confidence in the process, right? Because we want to make sure that the process is working. FDA is in the middle of a thorough, independent regulatory process to review this vaccine. And if a vaccine is authorized, it will have met FDA's rigorous standards. So that is what the parents, as a parent myself, and I know you're a parent, should be very proud of, that the FDA is doing this.
And on the DC mask mandate, do you expect that mask mandate coming down to affect policy here on campus at the White House?
So as always, and we say this, local communities will make their own decisions as they have throughout the pandemic, and but what we're going to do is we're going to abide by the CDC guidance. So that is, local communities make that decision, and that is what they choose to do.
The White House is not following the local guidelines.
We're following
for
no.
this place that is in the city.
To be clear, we are going to follow the CDC guidance. That's what we're going to do. Go ahead, Jen.
Back to the VP's trip to Germany.
Yeah.
Is there discussion in the White House about whether she should go no matter what is happening in Ukraine, or has there been discussions about what might trigger her to cancel?
You know, I don't have any insight on that. That's another hypothetical that I can't answer.
And she can't answer anything because she's only going to read and then say, that's all. The people in that room don't know how to communicate. It's crazy.
But what I can say is that we are proud that she's going to be leading the U.S. delegation to Munich, and that is on schedule to happen.
On the embassy in Kiev, do you know if all the classified information has now been stripped from that building?
I do not have that information for you. Yeah.
Thank you. I want to ask you a few questions on Quad and Russia. Do you think Quad countries are unanimous on the issue of Russia?
Can you say that one more time, Len?
Do you think the Quad countries, US, Japan, India, and Australia, they had a meeting in Australia recently. Do you think these countries are unanimous on the Russian?
On the Russian issue in particular. So, as you know, Secretary Blinken was just in the region where he met with the Quad. It was an opportunity to discuss Russia's ongoing threat to Ukraine. They discussed the threat that Russia's...
So thank you for asking a question I have written down. Like, literally, I don't know how they... Like, couldn't they just be like, can you just give us what you have there, and we'll take all of your answers, and then we'll just go home? Because that's what could have happened today. Yeah. Sorry, that's all I have.
Not only to Ukraine, but to the entire international rules-based order, which has provided a foundation for decades of shared security and prosperity for the region and around the globe. Throughout his meetings with the Quad partners, Secretary Blinken discussed the challenges Russia poses to the rules based on international order and our readiness to support our European allies.
I'm asking this question because, you know, the India's foreign external affairs minister S. Jaishankar said that India only follows multilateral sanctions, not country-specific sanctions. And as you're looking towards country-specific sanctions from the U.S., because the UN Security Council is unlikely to go for those sanctions because the vetoes Russia and China have that. Are you in conversations with Indians that they should follow the U.S. sanctions as well?
So, you know, we're not going to get into specifics. We've been really clear about our discussions, so not going into details on that. But beyond what we've read out from the Secretary's meeting in Melbourne last week, but we're working closely with a range of allies and partners, including India.
One final question.
Sure.
What role President Biden expects India to play in the Quad?
So we will continue to build a strategic partnership in which the United States and India work together to promote stability in South Asia, collaborate in new domains such as health, space, cyberspace, which is important, deepen our economic and technology cooperation, and contribute to a free and open Indo-Pacific. We recognize that India is a like-minded partner and leader in South Asia and the Indian Ocean, active in and connected to the Southeast Asia, a driving force of the Quad, and an engine for regional growth and development.
Connected to the Southeast Asia.
No problem. Oh, thank you.
Oh, it was funny. I'm sorry. It's funny to me. Jen's funny for her brutality and her viciousness, and she was funny because she was put on the spot reading, and they could have just gave her. I mean, they could have just gave everybody. It's kind of a ridiculous day, but it was fun. And I'm going to finish my day with most of this, probably half of the stream, guys. We're gonna get about halfway through it. The MMT smear that recently happened, and some experts on the situation, because MMT is very important right now.
All right, let me make sure
And this is going to be Ron Placone interviewing about MMT. Ron Placone, get your news on with Ron. He is fantastic with MMT. He is fantastic with community broadband, local broadband.
everything is awake, and then we'll get started. I know we're a few minutes early, so I'll give people a little bit of a little second here to load in. I'll make sure everything's awake. Just kind of do it to it production-wise so we know we're good. Welcome, everyone. Good to see you. Hope you had a lovely weekend. Things are waking up slowly. It's almost like the internet knew we were early. They're like, you're logging on early? I don't know how I feel about that. YouTube is officially awake. Twitter is officially awake. Rockfin, are you awake? Rockfin's here. Okay. Took a little bit, but we're all here. And you guys know me. I need to see it first to make sure everything is good. We're a few minutes early, but that's okay. We're going to do it to it. What's up, everybody? Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everyone in the future, Australia, New Zealand. Thanks for waking up. Thanks for tuning in. And for everyone who's checking out the podcast later, thank you for being here. If you don't mind, write a review. That'd be awesome. Write an awesome review. That'd be super cool. This is Get Your News On with Ron. This is the interview show of the week. And this is also the specialized interview show of the week because it is that time of the month where we do MMT Monday. That is the segment of the month where we do a segment dedicated to MMT. And before I bring in my MMT guy, let me take a quick moment to thank all the folks who helped make this show possible. Our friends over at Indie Left. Indie Left is a place to find a bunch of the content creators you know and love. They curate a list, updated twice a day to find out everything they got going, to subscribe to their Discord, independentleft.media. All right, so this is MMT Monday, all about modern monetary theory. We're going to give you a quick cliff notes on what that is. But first, let me bring in my MMT guy who helps me through all this. He is the host of the Activist MMT podcast. He's not the guy with the plane, but he does have the same name. Please welcome back to the show, Jeff Epstein. Jeff, what's up, buddy?
How's it going? How's it going?
Good, man. Good to see you. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. Will you be mine, Ron?
So, Jeff, before we continue, let's start like how we start every episode, every MMT segment, and give everybody a quick elevator pitch explanation of what MMT is.
I will. I want before I do.
And every time I enjoy it, so we're going to do this every time. Every month I'm going to show this, guys. I love this shit. Usually I only show a couple minutes, but MMT is really important right now, and it explains a lot, and I have to keep explaining it to people. It's driving me nuts.
Very good news. The good news is that I will see you in New York.
Oh, great, man. I'm thrilled to hear that.
Yeah, my wife.
It'll be awesome to see you.
Good. Yeah, I look forward to it. My wife gave me permission to go, so I can go. And the great news is, bing.
Yeah,
so it's back. It's back, and I don't want to hear any sticker shaming.
So
I get enough of it from my wife.
You won 2 battles with the missus. She's letting you come out to the show and your stickers on your glasses.
Actually, I took it from her glasses because she didn't want it, so I put it on mine.
Well, then that's kind of a win for her, right?
Yes. Well, something like that. All right. So MMT elevator pitch. MMT is a map. MMT is a map. Just like you have a geographical map to tell you what the land is like, because it's too big for you to see by yourself. It's too big. So you use a geographical map to give you an idea of the larger place where you are, to choose a destination of where to go and how to get there and what to expect along the way. That's what MMT is of our economy and our legal system. It doesn't mean you're going to get there, because there could be a guy there with a gun not letting you pass. But that's outside of the scope of the map. There could be a bridge out, which might be in the map to tell you, there's a bridge out. But there are things outside of that map that are beyond the scope of the theory. But MMT is an accurate map, where neoclassical economics is a completely bogus map. So it will get you walking in circles aimlessly, but you'll think that you're not walking aimlessly, and it essentially is to get you to hurt yourself so that the rich don't have to hurt you. MMT is different, where it shows you exactly where to go, but you may get into a much more fiercer battle with the person who doesn't want you to get there.
So MMT stands for Modern Monetary Theory, and what it acknowledges the truth that the United States is a currency creator, and when a polis is a currency creator, this is what they have the ability to do. And it goes into all the details around that. And it really, it kind of turns on its head the idea of what it means to have money in general, what it means to engage with currency. It kind of takes that and turns it on its head and makes you look at it in a way that you're not really programmed to look at it. So let's jump in to what has been happening recently. So recently, MMT made the news because they did a profile in the New York Times on Stephanie Kelton.
Yes, front page of the business section.
Front page of the business section. And it was about how it said that, is MMT winning? Because it acknowledged that we put a bunch of currency into the economy, quote unquote. And I use air quotes here because it was basically an upward transfer of wealth. But NYT was saying, well, the economy's great, but inflation did happen. So does that mean MMT is great? Is this a victory? And that was kind of the gist of the article, which I kind of saw some holes in for a number of reasons. I'm still thrilled that MMT is getting some due coverage. But here's the response where we're going to start our conversation here to kind of dive into the details. So this guy, Michael R. Strain, who is he's a member of a Koch-funded institute, the director of
economics. Yes, he is.
Yeah. and so American Enterprise Institute, that is a Koch-funded institute. For anyone who that doesn't ring a bell right away, Koch-funded means the Koch brothers, who are far-right neocons, and they fund these, far-right economic think tanks to try to dismantle any types of policies that will help regular people. So here's his tweet. MMT has obviously failed. Which, okay, how so, Michael? Second line. Its big claim was that massive deficits would not lead to inflation. Okay, that's not accurate. Right there. and someone points this out in the Twitter thread. We're going to go through this whole thing and then break it down. But to start, that's not true. MMT's big claim is not massive deficits would not lead to inflation. That's not their big claim.
Correct.
What they say around inflation is that, look, inflation is not only caused by deficits or creating currency. That's not the only thing that causes inflation. There's a lot of things that can cause inflation to happen. And there are ways where we can responsibly create currency to solve certain problems, to do certain initiatives where inflation will likely not happen. It's acknowledging that economic truth. It's not saying that inflation doesn't exist. It's not saying inflation can't be a problem.
Right.
It's just not oversimplifying. We're taught this whole idea that we're just a bunch of widgets standing still. So if a bunch of currency comes into an economy, all of a sudden inflation happens. It's nowhere near that simple. That's just not how it freaking works. So his second line is that's a total misrepresentation.
That's pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty good.
So then he says, huge fail. So, okay, those are just kind of a waste of characters there. That was just kind of Trumpian of him. He's saying it's obviously failed, but then he has to add, he's like, huge fail.
Huge.
Okay. He had sad in the original one, but.
Nice. All right. So then he says, then MMTer said, if by chance we ever got inflation, we should raise taxes. Are they advocating for tax hikes? Stephanie Kelton. So, Jeff, before we go on, how about you weigh in on this tweet in general?
Yeah, sure. No, we could talk for quite a while just on this particular things. I'll try and be quick. MMT has obviously failed. Okay, so someone gets cancer. Does that mean that science has failed? Does that make sense? No, it doesn't make sense. Science hasn't failed because someone gets cancer. That's just has nothing to do. The theory of science doesn't cause cancer, just like the theory of music doesn't cause bad music. So just the statement is nonsensical. Its big claim that massive deficits would not lead to inflation. You basically said it. He's kind of suggesting that. He is suggesting that MMT says we can just spend with no consequences whatsoever. So let's do our big left wish list of everything luxury that we want to do, and that's really not the point. That's the point. The point is that we clearly have the capacity to not withhold what is desperately needed by millions of people. During COVID, there was a lot of paychecks that for people who were not allowed to go to work, who had to pay rent, and those landlords had to pay their whoever they had to pay, and on and on and on in this cycle. So that was something that was desperately needed, and therefore it was safe to do. And same with healthcare and education. These are things that are desperately needed, and the idea of withholding them because the spending of how much they cost and how you're going to pay for it, that's what's bogus. And then if MMTer said if by chance we ever got inflation, we should raise taxes. That's a very big misrepresentation. Taxes is one of.
Let me ask you. would you say that that's just a very, very gross oversimplification?
No, I think it's just a plain misrepresentation.
Okay, how
Because
so?
because taxes is one of many tools to manage inflation, but that it can only be a reactive tool. Taxes are I believe it's correct to say that taxes are only a reactive tool to inflation, where the point is to prevent as much of that inflation as possible and to automate as much of the mitigation that can be automated into the legislation before we ever get to the point where taxes might be needed. But we can also enforce regulations. We can put CEOs in jail. We can shut down the fossil fuel industry and do a just transition for those workers who are in those fields. We can stop all of this talk recently of corporate power, of price gouging, but they're using the term inflation to hide behind.
Right.
So we could stop that price gouging. And all of these different tactics are things that can, one of many examples that
CEOs are still making like 20-30 million dollars a year right now, guys. Like they're increasing prices, they're not increasing our wages, inflation's going up, and they're increasing their own wages. That's what's happening.
could get to the root of inflation. Supply chain issues, wages that are way too low that, we spoke a long time ago about. Yeah, there's tons of things. Taxes is one of many possible, and it's reactive.
See, so I guess like, and yeah, I see what you're saying. That makes a lot of sense. I guess I would maybe put the fourth statement in the gross oversimplification category, because there's a little bit of like, yeah, technically that's part of it, but as you kind of like unpacked it, it's like, yeah, that's like one small piece, dude, not the entire puzzle. Whereas the first statement, its big claim was that massive deficits would not lead to inflation. That's straight up false. Mm-hmm. There's no seed of truth in that. That's just, you know what I mean? But
I can see what you mean. Yeah, the first one is more of a representation. The second one has a seed of truth in it.
So, all right. So let's scroll down. And then somebody points out, Stephanie Kelton responds to, someone says, imagine tweeting so confidently about M&T, but you get it wrong by the second line of your tweet. And Stephanie Kelton just goes, yep. But what's interesting to me is that I would say in so many ways, what it does prove is that, how do we measure that the quote unquote economy is good? And the we I'm referring to in this case is the corporate media. They measure it by what the stock market's doing, which is BS. That's total BS.
The stock market is the graph of rich people's feelings.
Totally. And so that right there is total BS. But that's not MMT's fault. But to try to make the connection to MMT here, they're saying, well, the economy's great according to our barometer. Well, why might it be great? Could it be because throughout the past couple of years, we've had one of the largest upward transfers of wealth that we've ever seen? And why have we had that? Well, because we as a society, employ MMT all the time. We just only employ it for the rich and the elite, not regular people. When we need bomb money, there's no problem creating that currency. When we need to have an upward transfer of wealth to Wall Street, no problem with that currency. When we need to bail out the airlines and we ask them to make promises not to lay people off, and they lay people off anyway, they just lie, and there's no consequences, there's no problem for that currency. So in a way, it's like that guy, even by their own logic, MMT has succeeded. It's just, all the wrong people are benefiting from it.
And unemployment is so much lower because we knocked millions more people off the rolls, so we don't even recognize them anymore. And I mean, that's a big part of what happened. That the Biden administration bragged about that. And it's because they're just pushed millions off of the rolls. They're not even considered unemployed anymore. I don't even know what the term is, but they're not considered as unemployed anymore because they've given up. So now our unemployment statistics are so much better.
There is it's not disgruntled worker. But yeah, there's something like that where it's like you don't count because, and then the way they
discouraged, something like that.
It's not, but yeah, it's along those lines, and it's pretty obvious. It'll probably come to one or both of us as soon as the show's over. But like, and then there's also, they don't really measure underemployed properly.
Of course, if you had a horrible job, you're employed. So suck it up. Yeah.
Right. And which of course is so, so misleading, especially here in the United States, because so many people, they are underemployed, where they have to work 2 and 3 jobs just to get by, or like they just straight up don't make enough to live. I mean, they are like literally.
That's our life, man.
They work full time.
That's the world.
They don't make enough money.
Deal with your job. Deal with it. Deal with it. Deal with it. And that's why we are currently in a quitting culture, because it's just burning people out. The working class is getting beaten up right now, and I just bartended freaking Valentine's Day. I am beaten up. I am sore. I am tired. I am getting high watching news with you guys because, I am beaten up. They kicked my ass today.
I need to live. I mean,
Right, but
that
they're
happens all the
counted
time.
as
But they're
employed.
counted.
They're counted
So-
as employed as if everything's okay. So our employment is whatever high, if it's potentially high, but how many of them are happy?
Well, let me ask you kind of a like just sort of a bigger picture thing before we move on to some of these other tweets. Were you happy to see Stephanie Kelton get this attention in the New York Times? Like, do you think this is overall a good thing to kind of get more people turned on to these economic ideas?
Oh yeah, no, I don't. The article was good. I don't think it was particularly anything. Big problems with it. I don't think. But the content of the article is not nearly as important as the fact that it is out there and that it was on the front page of the New York Times business section and caused this whatever you call it, this craziness. Yeah, this craziness, and now people are directly engaging with Larry Summers and Mark Furman or John Furman. I'm mixing up the names here.
Well, he's next. He's next.
Yeah, so I mean, people are engaging with them now and calling out some of their contradictions. And I mean, Larry Summers is a ghoul, really, but Jason Furman is a neoliberal economist. But
we're going to him next. You want to jump there?
Sure. Sure.
Before you talk about him, let's go there next. Okay. So Jason Furman also tweeted in response to this. Now, this guy is a neoliberal economist, as Jeff pointed out. Here's his take, and yeah, I have a number of thoughts on this. I'm struck by how MMT has actually had relatively little influence on the political system. Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, for example, both proposed paying for their spending proposals. Whether the numbers added up is another question. Actually, Bernie's did. Bernie's totally did. I can't speak to Liz Warren, but Bernie's numbers did, quote unquote, add up. Once AOC answered a question on paying for Medicare for All with reference to MMT, not a lot of other elected refer to it. The Fed certainly doesn't use it, and I would be surprised if Janet Yellen or the CEA did. I'm not even sure what it would mean for them to use it. Most everyone supports deficit spending in an emergency like a recession, a pandemic, a war, or a combination. That, in fact, is a recommendation, not just a standard of Keynesian economic, but in the least pandemic war case of classical economics, too. I also think that paying for things has been taken way too far, even outside of emergencies. It would be good to borrow more for infrastructure and investments in children. That conclusion follows from mainstream economics and is one I talked about long before I had heard of MMT. So I'll say a few things first, then turn it over to you, Jeff. This whole thing is like one big straw man to me. This is, I mean, honestly, like this is an example of one of the many, many reasons why I didn't continue in grad school and why I got out when I did, because I didn't want to be surrounded by academics that just focus on these straw man points that don't really add anything to the conversation. They're just throwing flowery words and concepts at people. All he's saying in this entire thread, at least the way I see it, is politicians don't mention MMT a bunch in their messaging. So that must mean it's not influential. Although, as we pointed out, they use MMT for the elite and the powerful all the time.
He sort of spent a lot of time on something that he finds doesn't have much influence at all.
Yeah, no kidding. I never knew that AOC mentioned MMT when talking about Medicare for All. I wasn't even aware of that. He was.
That was a huge milestone, actually.
Okay, I don't even recall that. I don't listen to politics.
It was probably before we first spoke.
Oh, really? Ever?
About MMT. It was 2018. It was early 2018 or something like that. Yeah, when she said MMT should be part of the conversation. Something like that. Maybe I'm off somewhat, but it was quite early.
I'm glad you did. I'm just saying I don't, I didn't even know that. Yeah. Most everyone supports deficit. I mean, again, like these are all straw men, more or less. Like it's not just about deficit spending. It's about the way we are able to spend. Mm-hmm. MMT is not just about like, deficit spending versus not, or pandemic versus not. It's basically like, this is how money works in our society. This is how we go about it. This is how we could be utilizing these economic truths of how our economy works.
Right.
And then he's like, politicians don't use it in their messaging. Who cares?
Yeah,
I mean, look, those are two completely different things. And I mean, I do a segment on MMT.
Politicians also dilute every single thing that we say constantly. Like, I mean, if we are for something, they dilute it down and like, we're for defunding the police, they're for police reform, that we're for Medicare for all, they're for Medicare available for all, or Medicare, they flower the shit up, which actually dilutes it down every time. So who cares what freaking politicians think? They're all bought and paid for, and they're going to corporate everything up that we try to do anyway.
Once a month with you. I talk about these theories.
Cool.
But if I was running for office, which would never happen, but if I ever was, and I wanted to try to turn people onto policies, I wouldn't just be like, learn MMT, goofballs, and drop a microphone. Why? Because a lot of people don't know what MMT is. That's not going to win me votes. That's not going to win people over. That's not how I turn people onto my ideas to try to get them to want to vote for me. You know what I mean? It's sort of like jumping a few steps ahead, and you're just not gonna win people that way. So I think his whole politicians are talking about it a bunch. Who cares?
That's
I don't care. I mean, maybe I
no,
honestly don't care at all.
They don't care about MMT, the theory. They don't care about the term MMT. They don't care about MMT, the theory itself. That's not what they care about. What they care about is if the majority of people really understood this map and then beeline to that destination of where they want like Medicare for all and then demanded it.
You're talking about the Jason Furmans of the world when you say
I mean,
you don't mean politicians. You mean
no, I mean politicians as well. As well. They don't care about MMT, the theory itself, as much as they care of the public in mass understanding that theory and using it as a map to beeline and so that they would actually have to pick up, have to be directly violent. They want to deceive people so that they wander aimlessly and they hurt themselves. They don't want to have to actually have a pointed fight. They don't actually want to be challenged. And the false map allows them to be challenged. So they don't care about the theory. They care about the people potentially picking up and understanding that theory and then applying it. That's what they have to undermine. That's what they have to prevent. So yeah, sure, of course, they're not talking about it. They're using the concepts for the rich, and they're not using the concepts they're using to deprive the poor. I mean, who cares what they call it or don't call it? I mean, that is how the economy works, and they know it. They pretend it doesn't work that way when it comes to people policy.
Well, what's then I guess give me your kind of overall take on the rest of this guy's thread, because I really that's all I got on this. I just think this is just a total deviating straw man. I think it's a waste of characters.
I think so too.
What
I find funny about it is actually not this in and of itself, but comparing this to a tweet from Larry Summers, he says at the top, he says, I'm struck by how MMT has had relatively little influence on the political system, and yet he spends all this time discussing why would he waste his time on something that has so little influence. But then there's a tweet by Larry Summers on the same day, where Larry Summers says it would be valuable for senators, at the end of his thread, at the end of Larry Summers' threads, it would be valuable for senators to verify that Fed nominees are not in the thrall of MMT. So don't even appoint someone if they even are in the thrall of MMT. So is it that it has no influence, like Furman is saying? Or is it so dangerous that they can't even consider anyone who is in the thrall of MMT? So it has no influence, according to this guy, and it is so dangerous that that should be the first question that we ask Fed nominees.
And he mentions Bernie Sanders. Who was Bernie Sanders' economic advisor, at least at one point?
Oh, for both of his entire campaigns was Stephanie Kelton, of course.
Kelton.
And regardless of how he spoke and how he communicated, his policies, setting aside the pay-fors, his policies were full on MMT, full on informed by MMT. They were that bold. Elizabeth Warren was, she had tastes of it here and there, but she was not as full on as Bernie by any stretch. But yeah, I mean, his policies reflected it, regardless of what they said or didn't say. And as far as affording it, I want to go back to MMT says that the strain one, where MMT says that that we can do huge deficits and it won't cause inflation, and now they've been proven wrong. Yeah, I mean, but that's just the concept. So MMT says we could have huge deficits and it won't cause inflation. And Barney said, how are we going to pay for it? Well, does it add up, like Furman is saying? The thing is that Medicare for all and education and a Green New Deal and all of these things create resources.
Right.
That is spending for Medicare for all creates resources. It improves resources. It makes our current resources of labor stop being sick and let them be more productive, and let them go to a job where they can really shine so they can be more productive. And education makes them smarter so they can be more productive. So it's just the idea that spending causes inflation at all is just utter nonsense for so many reasons. And one of those reasons is that spending can be used to increase production, to prevent inflation.
And that gets back to kind of what we said at the beginning, where it's like, and you've said this before, where, yeah, when you just oversimplify it, grossly oversimplify it, so it's just like, well, just spending just causes inflation, and that's it, period. That's all you need to know. That's all there is. No, that's not. There's so much more, because, again, that assumes that we're just all widgets, and we're just all like bumping
time
each
stands
other,
still,
we're just moving robots, and time stands still, and then it's like, there's more currency here. I guess it's just worthless.
Oops.
No. When you fund something like a jobs program, that puts people to work, and they are producing something. When you fund something like a Green New Deal, we are reinventing the way we do our infrastructure. We are getting off of fossil fuels. We are having an entirely new way to conduct our society, and this leads to all kinds of different things, different types of food economies, different types of ways we evaluate our resources. I mean, it's just, the list goes on and on about how things change when you spend for these types of things, and that's what MMT is all about. We don't have to be confined by we can't afford it. And and you and I have had this conversation too. I think from a political messaging standpoint, I like the fact that someone like a Bernie Sanders, they point out how we're misusing all the resources that we have, how all this money that's going to war and this and that could be going towards all these better things. I think that's worthwhile from a political messaging standpoint because that starts to wake people up. But at the end of the day, yeah, any types of bold progressive policies nod to MMT, whether they directly say it or not.
Yes, and one last point regarding creating money causes inflation, which is what the first guy was Strain was saying. Big deficits don't cause inflation, but clearly they're wrong. When you say that creating money causes inflation, that's essentially anti-government. That's an essentially anti-government statement, and more precisely, it's essentially an anti-poor statement because the government can't do hardly anything without creating money as part of the process. It's just not possible. So to say creating money causes inflation and therefore we should be creating less means that the government should be doing less. And when the government does less, who always gets the short end of the stick? The poor do. So, and one final point of that is that creating money, creating money, a lot of that doesn't go into the hands of people that spend it.
Right.
A lot of that, for example, mint the coin, if we created money by minting a coin, that would never, not any of that would go into the real economy, into the hands of actual people. None of it would, but that's creating money. And same with like QE, none of that goes into the real economy. That stays in the banking reserve system. That doesn't go into the economy. So this idea that all of the money that's created only goes to people who are going to spend it in inflationary sectors is ridiculous. A lot of that money is invested and it's spent overseas, meaning not spent here, paying taxes, paying debt. There's just a million factors that make that statement completely bogus.
That's where I wanted to end it right there. That was super well said. Struck it on, and MMT completely explains this current inflation, and look into it. Stephanie Kelton and this Jeff Epstein, an economist, activist, and MMT is real. We need it. We need to go over it, and our economy could be so much better. But that's all I had tonight, guys. I wanted to leave it there. Like I said, bartender kicked my butt at the good old work Valentine's Day. So I will see you guys around midnight tomorrow, every night around midnight. I'm going to have a U.S. Empire episode tomorrow. A little news on the U.S. Empire. Of course, I'm going to hit somebody on the Stony Progressive Takedown. It's been a while since I found a good Republican, so let's find a good Republican for tomorrow. And what is Tuesday? Oh, and Tuesday is NPR Day, so we'll hit we're gonna do some U.S. Empire. I've been listening to NPR lately, and I got some clips to go over, and other news to burn through tomorrow night after midnight, guys. So catch me here on YouTube, catch me over here on Twitch. And I'll get high and let's check out some news tomorrow night. Take care, guys. Thanks for joining. And keep it stony, keep it cool.